Hey guys, welcome back to another Snapshots from the Bible. I'm Pastor Justin. Today we're looking at one of my absolute favorite books of the Bible, which is Judges. It's always been my favorite ever since I was a junior high kid and wanted to get into all the gory details, the blood and all the cool superhero stories, everything that's in Judges. But really, if we're going to be honest about it, Judges is a very tragic book. It's a book that really highlights how far we as people and we as a culture can descend into sin and depravity. And there's a refrain that goes on over and over and over again in the book of Judges, which is, and they all did what was right in their own eyes. They followed their heart, in other words. They did what they thought was right. It's all very relative, right? It's relativism. And so this country that was founded, Israel that was founded on God, founded on his word, founded with his priests at the head, has completely slipped into horrible sin and apostasy. And in Judges 17, there's a very interesting short story that really illustrates how far the country has fallen. So it has to do with a guy named Micah. So I'm going to sum it up here. I don't have to read all 13 verses, but so Micah steals a bunch of silver from his mom. He runs away. So he already breaks two of the 10 commandments. That then he comes back, and his mom's weirdly overjoyed that he came back, that she not only forgives him, but they conspire together to take that silver, melt it down, and create idols to worship God. Remember, God has told them in the Ten Commandments, don't make graven images. You don't worship idols. Even if it's an idol of me, you don't worship that. But they do it anyways, and they consecrate this silver to the Lord. As this chapter goes on, you see that they have these lofty intentions, that they're doing what they think is right, and they think not only what they think is right, they think it pleases God. So they melt this down, they make idols. Verse 6 is said, in those days Israel had no king, everyone did as he saw fit. That's a very ominous refrain. And then it goes on. You don't think that's not even the worst part. The worst part is in verse 7. A Levite comes along, and you might remember that the Levites are the priestly tribe of the Israelites. There where Israel gets all their priests. And so this Levite comes, stays the night, and they say, hey, why don't you stay in our house forever? You could be our personal priest. And they ordain him to live there. They basically they become his support and they feed him and he becomes their personal priest. And you might be thinking that's not so bad, except that is completely bad. That is not at all how God designed the system of the priesthood. You didn't have individual priests. You had priests that watched over the whole nation. And you can't have just this guy who sits in your house and says, well, what you're doing is obviously okay. But again, at the end of this chapter, it says, then in verse 12, then Micah installed the Levite. Not even another priest. Just this average guy came along and said, I have this power and authority to install a priest. Then Micah installed the Levite, and the young man became his priest and lived in his house. And Micah said, now I know the Lord will be good to me, since this Levite has become my priest. That is the mother of all bad assumptions. That when you do something wrong, you not only assume it's right, but you assume it pleases God, that God will reward you for that. And I'm bringing this up because this is something that I feel not only normal people fall into, but Christians most definitely fall into this trap every now and then of doing something that is sinful and somehow rationalizing it in a way that it not only is not sinful, but we think it pleases God. I wrote a post this week on the website. I encourage you to go read it about believing lies that are told just because they make you feel good about it, and how the ultimate test for whether or not something actually pleases God, something actually is accordance with His will and His command, is always to go to the Bible, to go to the Scriptures. Don't just take what I say on Sunday morning as truth. Go to Scripture and examine it yourself. I'm proclaiming the Word, but I could be wrong. And I want you to always examine that. If you hear somebody else tell you that, hey, it's totally okay to melt down your silver, make graven idols of the Lord, worship them, and install your own personal priest in your house, you need to go to the Bible and say, wow, that really goes against all of these commandments. So that won't please God. That'll bring down a curse on me and my household. And yeah, so Micah doing what he thinks is right, and absolutely none of it is right. That's a very important warning for all of us today. It's something we see runs all the way into the New Testament. We see that with a lot of the priests, with the Pharisees, people doing what they think is right, what they think the Lord is pleased with. And God is pleased with none of it. He is not having it. That can happen to us too. We just need to be very careful about that and always going back to the scripture to see, what does God say? What does scripture say? And if that goes against what I'm doing, I need to change, not scripture. God bless. Go with this. I know it's a little heavy, but it's very important for us to realize this. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the sunshine. Love you.